This afternoon, gale force winds and wild surf, 10-metre swells swallow the Sydney coast. A king tide catches locals off guard. Unspeakable loss, loved ones mourn after a deadly helicopter crash. Historic deal, the new agreement between Australia and India. And slap shock, Will Smith quits the academy, admitting he betrayed its trust.
This is 7 News with Angela Cox.
Good afternoon. Sydney's coastline has been battered as strong winds and powerful surf create giant waves, damaging boats and creating a spectacle for locals who watched it all unfold. Let's go live to Serena and Deloro at Bondi. Serena, there were fears for a boatie.
Yeah, Ange, good afternoon to you. The water police, a rescue chopper, was out there desperately searching after a capsized tinny was discovered off the coast of Bronte, which is in Sydney's eastern suburbs. There were fears that someone was out there, but thankfully the boat's owner spoke to police on land, leading to the search being called off. Now, this boat was actually moored in Gordon's Bay, which is a couple of bays over, and it had been dragged by this monster surf all the way to Bondi, so quite a way, along with a number of other smaller boats. It has been quite the day out on the water. Monster 10-metre waves pounding the coast, causing an almighty mess on our beaches too. In Avoca, the king tide surged right onto streets and into front yards, and one local in Bondi saw something seriously incredible. Take a listen.
We were just standing right over here, and a huge shark got flipped out of the water into the iceberg's pool, and then didn't know what it was doing, and then got flipped back out again. It was so extraordinary.
For Sydney, we are looking at some sunshine returning tomorrow, but we could see those dangerous conditions on the water continue through Sunday.
Now, as we've just heard, we can expect some sunshine over the next 24 hours, which is some good news, but those hazardous surf warnings remain very firmly in place. Ange?
OK, Serena and Deloro, thank you. That wild weather is now heading south, with Victorians told to brace for flash flooding. Damaging winds and heavy rain are expected to lash the east of the state.
Into tomorrow afternoon, that could top more than 120 millimetres over a 6-hour period. This will likely lead to life-threatening flash flooding for parts of East Gippsland. There is a risk of landslides as well, just because the ground is so wet.
Melbourne is expected to be spared the worst of it, with just a few showers forecast. Exhausted residents in northern New South Wales are crying out for help as clear skies reveal the devastating impact of flooding. There are calls for clearer warnings as the region braces for the possibility of more flooding.
Just when you start to see a bit of progress and a few green shoots of life in and around the city, and it just gets wiped out again. So yeah, it has been a pretty tough week.
In Casino, there was a special parade to thank more than 400 troops who've helped clean up over the past month. A finance consultant from New South Wales has been identified as the 4th victim of a deadly helicopter crash north of Melbourne. It's being described as one of the worst aviation tragedies in Victoria's history. Investigators are still trying to work out why the chopper came down. Blake Johnson reports.
4 of the 5 victims in this crash have now been identified publicly. The 4th victim confirmed as Ian Perry, a 59-year-old finance consultant from New South Wales. On the ground near the crash site today, it's cold, wet and gloomy. The 5 victims are yet to be removed from the wreck. From search crews, we have new insight into how difficult the retrieval job has been.
Rugged, trees are probably only not even a metre apart, so it's very hard getting into there.
The track there hasn't been touched since the 2009 Black Saturday fires. It took them more than a day to get in.
Every day's been different, so it's been raining, it's been foggy, it's been warm.
But not today. It's about 10 degrees, slippery and muddy. Transport safety investigators are yet to reveal why they think the helicopter crashed through trees on Thursday morning. It is unclear exactly when the victims' bodies will be brought back to the city, and the helicopter company Microflight has cancelled all services. It will not be flying its fleet until Tuesday at the earliest.
Australia has signed a historic trade deal with India that will eliminate $12 billion worth of tariffs each year. Political reporter Jennifer Beshwadi is in Canberra. Jen, this deal is being called a game changer.
Well, it's hoped this deal will fill the huge void left by China after the country slapped trade sanctions on a number of Australian industries over the past 2 years. The biggest winners in this historic agreement are Australian sheep meat, coal, wine and wool. The deal will see tariffs eliminated on more than 85% of Australia's exports to India, while 96% of Indian goods will enter Australia duty-free. Scott Morrison says it opens up a new market for Australian farmers.
We've been working on this for many years, the last 3.5 years in particular. We are opening the biggest door of one of the biggest economies in the world. The Indian economy is worth billions and billions and billions.
The deal is also welcomed by Labor. Anthony Albanese says the relationship with India will be a focus for him if he becomes Prime Minister.
We can engage strongly and have great benefit by deepening the relationship between Australia and India. I welcome a deepening of that relationship, and it's something that would be very much a focus of a government that I lead.
But questions have been raised about why Australia has made such an important deal with a country that's backed the Russian regime.
Why Australia is doing a deal with India when they will not condemn the outrageous invasion by Russia of Ukraine.
Well, India's called for peace, and that's something that the world is calling for.
Scott Morrison says it's all about jobs, and as for economic markets, it doesn't get much bigger than India.
With the federal election due to be called in a matter of days, Liberal candidates in New South Wales have finally been endorsed. The selections for 9 seats were long overdue. A 3-person committee, including the Prime Minister and State Premier, took over the decision-making after intense internal bickering. 50 new school-based vaccination centres have been set up in Queensland as more than a dozen children battle COVID in hospital. The state's vaccination rate in children is lagging, with authorities pushing for more people to get their booster, while doctors are now urging Australians to start getting the flu vaccination before winter hits. Ukrainian forces have managed to push Russian troops out of a suburb in Kyiv, with the president confirming they've recaptured critical towns. Irpin is now an example of Ukrainian resistance, but many residents who fled now have little left to come back to. Europe Bureau Chief Hugh Whitfield reports.
This is the road out of Irpin. We've just spent a couple of hours in the town with Special Forces police who've been escorting us through a town that has been the scene of a month-long battle that in the history of this war may prove to be crucial. In the early days of the conflict, people were trying to get out of the town, but the Ukrainians were forced to bomb the bridge here so that they could stop the Russian advance, because this is the road straight to Kyiv. In the town, though, the Russians were there for a month, and the Ukrainians have just in the last couple of days liberated the town, and just in the last 24 hours it's been cleared of mines and traps and bodies. Hundreds of civilians were killed with the ongoing battles. Some stayed, though, and we met a few of them who were living in a basement underground, an apartment block for 5 weeks, listening to the gunfire and the missiles and the rockets surrounding them. Half the buildings in the town were destroyed, and many more were simply ransacked by Russian forces. It is still too dangerous for tens of thousands of residents to return to their homes. The Russians might be gone from here, but the fear is that they're in towns to the north of here, Bucha and Gostomel. And whatever the Kremlin says about Russian forces retreating back to Belarus, well, the Ukrainians here simply don't believe them. They fear that there will be another Russian advance aiming to get to Kyiv.
Will Smith has resigned from the Oscars Academy, admitting he betrayed its trust when he slapped comedian Chris Rock on stage during the awards. Here's US Bureau Chief Ashley Mullaney.
Facing expulsion from the Academy, Hollywood star Will Smith has quit first, saying he is heartbroken over his actions. Smith issued a lengthy statement apologising, describing his actions as shocking, painful and inexcusable. The list of those I have hurt is long and includes Chris, his family, many of my dear friends and loved ones, all those in attendance and global audiences at home. The slap wasn't scripted, nor was Rock's joke, it's been revealed.
He didn't tell one of the planned jokes. He was just immediately freestyling. But I tell you, if there's anybody that you don't worry about going out in front of a live audience and riffing off the cuff, it's Chris Rock.
Will Packer, who led the Oscars show, revealing more details tonight about what unfolded backstage.
I said, "Did he really hit you?" And he looked at me and he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I just took a punch from Muhammad Ali."
Smith's exit from the Academy means he can no longer vote for future Oscar winners but can still be nominated. Despite the resignation, the Academy says it's moving forward with disciplinary action and plans to meet later this month.
Still to come in 7 News, petrol station protest why these activists climbed onto a fuel tank, and prostate drug hope, the price of a pill slash thousands of Australian men to benefit. That's next. A Perth man is facing a kidnapping charge after he allegedly stole the car he was a passenger in while a little girl was asleep in the back. Police say the 5-year-old's mother stopped the vehicle outside a cafe in Osborne Park last night. She left her child and the 27-year-old passenger for a few minutes, but when she returned, her car and daughter were gone. Officers spotted the vehicle nearby and took the man into custody, then reunited the girl with her mother. Police in Victoria have arrested 3 protesters who climbed onto a fuel tanker in Melbourne after 30 people from the group Extinction Rebellion caused some traffic delays this morning when they targeted the Yarraville petrol station. 3 activists who jumped on board the truck were eventually taken into custody. Thousands of Australian men suffering advanced prostate cancer have been given a lifeline with a specialised treatment added to the PBS. As Matthew Custunen explains, it won't just save people thousands of dollars, it will also extend the lives of sufferers.
Good afternoon. Well, around 18,000 Australian men will be diagnosed with prostate cancer this year alone, but it's not all bad news.
While more men are getting diagnosed, more men are surviving this disease and living much longer.
And a prostate cancer treatment for those with an aggressive form of the disease is hoping to do just that. Lynparza has been added to the PBS, which is a daily tablet. Normally would cost around $6,500 a month. That's been cut to just $42.50.
And research tells us that there's a 30% reduction in mortality for men when placed on Lynparza.
The drug targets certain weaknesses in a man's DNA to attack the cancer.
So this drug offers benefits to help shrink the cancer and help them to live with less pain.
Around 2,000 Australian men will benefit, but there are calls to add more specialised treatments to the PBS.
We're hoping to hear an announcement on PSMA PET scan, CT, sometime soon. We know there's a recommendation into the government.
Tonight in 7 News at 6, we'll speak to one man who's been diagnosed with prostate cancer at just 45 years old and how this treatment could potentially help save his life.
A US judge has denied Ghislaine Maxwell's bid for a new trial. The 60-year-old was convicted in December of trafficking girls for Jeffrey Epstein. Maxwell had argued one of the jurors falsely stated before trial he'd never been sexually abused, denying her right to a fair trial. But the judge said the juror held no bias towards her. Sarah Palin is returning to American politics, announcing she's entering the race for Alaska's only congressional seat. The outspoken Conservative filed paperwork today to join a field of at least 40 other candidates. Palin has kept a relatively low profile since her famous campaign in 2008 to become America's first female vice president. Veterans from the Falklands War who volunteered to fight against Argentinian forces have gathered to mark 40 years since the tiny British-occupied islands were invaded. The conflict lasted 74 days and left more than 900 dead.
I always remember coming down over the hill by the Battle Memorial and seeing the Argentine vehicles, the Argentine flags and the Argentine soldiers. It was terrible. I never thought I'd ever see that alive in the Falklands.
It was only 2 years ago the island was fully cleared of 24,000 landmines planted by Argentinian troops. Prince Charles and Camilla have shared a laugh with the cast and crew of popular British soap opera EastEnders. The royals visited the set, which was transformed into a street party for scenes celebrating the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. The chivalrous future king even gave up his coat for a group photo. It's pretty chilly. Sport is next with Matt Shirvington and Shirvo. The Panthers, too good again.
Oh, Ange, they're on fire, aren't they? The reigning premiers picked up the 2 points, an 8-point try and bragging rights over their newest rivals once again. Details next. Plus, some Adam Reynolds magic, giving Broncos fans flashbacks to the great Alfie Langer. And could another premiership be on the way for the D's? Melbourne's women keeping the dream alive. Good afternoon. The Brisbane Broncos have slumped to back-to-back defeats in the NRL. A sellout home crowd watched the Warriors win a lacklustre clash 20-6 at Redcliffe this afternoon. Adam Reynolds' Alfie Langer impersonation was in vain.
Reynolds rubbers for himself and is the skipper.
But the big news is the continued scourge of the hip drop and cannonball tackles. Bronco Pat Carrigan and Warrior Ben Murdoch-Masila suffered leg injuries. Tom Flegler was reported for 4 separate incidents. Last night, Nathan Cleary played his first game of the season and the Panthers dominated the grand final rematch over South Sydney. New star Taylor May scored twice, including a controversial 8-point try that helped the Premiers win 26-12 and stay unbeaten after 4 rounds.
Is that Ilias?
Yeah. Hayden Tolman marked his 300th NRL game with a rare try in the Sharks' 18-0 win over the Knights. 2 of the AFLW's biggest stars will face off in next Saturday's grand final. Melbourne's Daisy Pearce kept her chances of a fairy tale premiership to finish her career alive as the D's hung on to beat the Lions by 4 points.
And Daisy's D's have done it.
Yeah, pumped. I'm just so proud of our girls. We've been close in many seasons, but never this close, so can't wait.
And Erin Phillips led the Crows to a 4-point win over Fremantle in the other prelim final. Adelaide will host the decider on Saturday at the Adelaide Oval. Of all the AFL's Adelaide showdowns, there's been no better finish than this from last night. The Crows found themselves 2 points down with seconds to go when Lachlan Murphy was crunched in a tackle. Unable to take his free kick, Jordan Dawson stepped up to give Port their worst start to the season in more than a decade.
It got there! The scenes at the Adelaide Oval!
And Melbourne pulled off a great comeback to defeat Essendon by 29 points and maintain their perfect start to the season. It'll be deja vu for the Socceroos if they make it through to this year's World Cup finals. At this morning's draw, they were slotted in the same group as 2018 rivals France and Denmark, along with Tunisia. But to get there, Australia must win playoffs against the UAE and Peru in June. The first 3 Aussies are confirmed for July's World Athletics Championships. Tokyo 2020 finalists Matt Denny and Ollie Hoare won their spots in discus and the 1500 metres in Sydney last night. Nina Kennedy booked her ticket with another national title in the pole vault. And with Rowan Browning resting a hamstring, Townsville's Jake Doran won the 100 in 10.05, but with an illegal 3.7 metre per second tailwind.
I'm national champion, the fastest man in the country. Doesn't get much better than that in this sport.
Kiwi Zoe Hobbs won the women's 100 in 11.17. Australia are set to play Elise Perry as the specialist batter in tomorrow's World Cup final against England in Christchurch. The champion all-rounder missed the semi-final with a back problem.
It'll just depend on how she pulls up sort of this afternoon. That will be the sort of the final hurdle she needs to get over.
Meg Lanning's team charged into their first final since winning it in 2013 with a flawless campaign and are playing for a record 7th World Cup crown. Level 1-1, the Aussie men face Pakistan in their deciding 3rd one-day in Lahore tonight. Well, there you go. Great winning run from Nathan Cleary coming back into the NRL. His stats now for Penrith since the start of 2020, he's lost only 3 games from 42 matches.
Wow.
He is that good.
You're a fan, so am I. OK, thanks, Matt. Still to come in 7 News, we'll take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast right around the country. Taking a look at tomorrow's weather around the country now, a low in the east will continue to drive showers, strong winds and large waves over the New South Wales coast and eastern Victoria. A low and trough in WA will dip south, drawing warm winds, showers and storms in the state's west. A trough in the north and into Queensland will cause a few storms. Around the capitals, Brisbane mostly sunny, a top of 29 degrees. Sydney sunny, heading for 26 degrees. Canberra a shower or two, 19 degrees there. Melbourne showers, also 19 degrees. Hobart a late shower, 18 degrees. Adelaide partly cloudy and 24 degrees. Perth showers, a possible storm and 28. Darwin partly cloudy and 24 degrees. Before we go, a reminder about daylight saving, which ends in the early hours of tomorrow morning. Clocks in New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia, Tasmania and the ACT will be wound back by 1 hour, so you'll get a Sunday sleep in. Smart devices should update automatically. And that is 7 News for now. Our next bulletin is 7 News at 6. I'm Angela Cox. Thanks so much for your company. Have a great night.